What up world, it's me, Megan Kerstetter, and welcome to my art channel. Today I'm going to be working on my next Draw YouTuber video, and I bet for my introduction, you guys can guess who it's of. Yep, I heard everyone's request, and I decided I wanted to draw the talented voice actor and impressionist Brizzy Voices. If you guys haven't heard of Brizzy, I recommend you check out her channel here. Seriously guys, you gotta trust me when I say her stuff is awesome. I know what I'm talking about. I binge listened to a bunch of her content while making this image, and it did not disappoint. No one can ever accuse me of not doing research for my projects. So research is binging YouTube videos while you draw? Okay. Moving on, I also wanted to let you guys know that most of this video is unscripted, or I basically memorized the words because I said them so much, so it was like mind scripted. Anyway, even this part's unscripted. I'm just saying whatever I want to say, and now I'm gonna say, let's get to the artwork. To start off this picture, I work with a really rough sketch. I just put in basic shapes, lines, just indications of where I want each of the characters to go. And then I go in with my first round of starting to flesh out the image. So to start this picture, I wanted to get one of the biggest trials out of the way first, which was going to be Hogwarts. Yes, I have drawn the magical school Hogwarts, found a reference online, because references, guys, they are your friends. Alright, so after my first round at doing Hogwarts, I started sketching in one of the characters I wanted, and that was JX9 from My Life as a Teenage Robot. Never actually watched this show as a kid, but I really love her design. She has little rockets for pigtails, and I think that's pretty much adorable. The next character I start working on is Marceline from Adventure Time with her signature umbrella. The sun was going to be out in this image, so I needed her to be covered in shadow because she is a vampire. I also added Princess Bubblegum. Little side note, I put both characters in my favorite outfits from the series. Moving on, you've probably noticed a little gray rectangle popping up on the screen every so often. That's actually being used to measure the characters and get the proportions as close as physically possible to their original designs. I learned this technique from back when I was in college and I was in figure drawing classes. So for figure drawing, you would either use your pencil to measure a piece of paper or even a pair of calipers. Since I can't actually use any of those digitally, or well, I could put a piece of paper over top of my Cintiq screen and turn it or fold it or mark it up to figure out the proportions and measurements of the characters, but since I like working digitally, I just do the box inside of Clip Studio Paint or Photoshop. Moving on, I finish up Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, and then I start drawing Poison Ivy from Batman the Animated Series, the classic version, because it's my personal favorite, as well as the favorite of one of my really good friends, the person who actually introduced me to the Batman series and started the obsession. So, Crystal, this part of the picture, it's for you. I hope that both you and Brizzy like her a lot. I had a lot of fun drawing her. I love making the giant flower she's sitting on and the expression on her face. I don't usually give characters this kind of expression, but I'm really glad I was able to pull it off. Next, I start sketching in Twilight Sparkle from My Little Pony, and let me tell you guys, she was a real challenge to draw, even though the MLP style seems so simple. It's ridiculously hard for some reason. I don't know. For some reason, it was just very difficult for me to do, and it took a while to find a reference that I liked, but I eventually got her to where I wanted her, and yeah, it turned out all right. I'm pretty happy with it. The next character I drew was a lot simpler, Mandy from the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and then I moved on to Ariel from The Little Mermaid. It was a lot of fun to draw Ariel because I remember drawing her all the time as a kid and doing it as an adult and actually knowing how to measure out proportions and get her to look really, really close to her original design was so satisfying for me. And yeah, I was really, really happy with the way she turned out. Next, I start working on Ash Ketchum from Pokémon. Brizzy does such a great impression of Ash, and it's honestly one of my favorite characters that she does. Growing up with Pokémon in the 90s, it has a special place in my heart, so he and Pikachu definitely needed to be a part of this image. Granted, it's funny, I grew up drawing anime and cartoons, not really good ones or anything, but as I got older, I progressed and stuff, but going back and now trying to draw in an anime style again, it was a real challenge to get Ash to look like Ash from the original series, and I actually had to pull up some images from X and Y, and I kind of ended up mashing them sort of together, but eventually he did turn out looking pretty close, and once again, I was satisfied, which is the important thing. Next up, I drew everyone's favorite mouse, Mickey, and it was actually, once again, it was a lot of fun to draw Mickey. After drawing him 2 other times, I got through this round a lot faster, so that was pretty cool. He's getting closer and closer to looking exactly the way he needs to. Then I start drawing Snow White. Oh my goodness, Snow White was a challenge. She looks a little lot different from her original design, kind of, in the new Disney versions that they've drawn for her, but I figured it out. I really wanted her to look mostly like the classic Snow White, and yeah. Next I start drawing Minnie, and that was a lot of fun. It was very amusing during live stream because while I was drawing her, I realized Minnie is Mickey with eyelashes and a bow, so I guess I've drawn that format of character more than 3 times. After I was finished with Minnie, I drew Jigglypuff from Pokémon, Lumpy Space Princess from Adventure Time, and Bubbles from the Powerpuff Girls. Bubbles is another one of my favorite voices that Brizzy has done an impression of. Then I started working on Wanda from the Fairly Odd Parents, and then Raven from Teen Titans. Raven came out alright to me. It was another style that I had a really hard time with, and she's probably has the least likeness to her original character, which kind of annoys me, but I needed to move on with the picture, and she does still represent Raven from Teen Titans, so I am happy with that. At this point, I start working on the Quidditch pitch, and then I start adding in Brizzy and Harley Quinn. Now, at this point in the video, you're probably going to start to notice that this image has quite the Harry Potter theme. Well, that is because Brizzy is a big Harry Potter fan, and I knew if I was going to make a picture for her that it needed to have that Harry Potter magic. When I drew Brizzy, I made sure to give her her Ravenclaw robes, as well as her Deathly Hallow necklace, a wand, and the diadem of Ravenclaw. For some reason, the diadem was just a real struggle for me, and I ended up getting really frustrated with it. There was just so much detail, and it was stressing me out, and I ended up actually erasing it and making my own version that just sat on her forehead. I actually finished the image and was working on the voiceover for this when I realized I wasn't satisfied with the diadem as it was, so off camera I ended up fixing it and changing it to look more like its original design. At this point, I've pretty much fleshed the characters out, and I start to put down inks. I also decided that I wanted to experiment with a different kind of workflow. It was an experience. I ended up not getting the results that I really wanted. The idea was that I would do the line work and then put the flat colors down for each character that I worked on. But I realized after I had finished that my line work ended up getting really neglected, and it really didn't stay consistent throughout the whole piece. To fix this, I ended up reworking the line art off camera until I was satisfied with the end result. One of the things that I forgot to mention I added was the tiny Nimbus 2000 that's on the broomstick Stitch is riding. And yeah, I know it's not as nice looking as the ones in the movies, but it's been a couple years since the Nimbus 2000 came out, right? So it makes sense that this one's kind of older and used and is probably owned by, the Hogwarts school. Are just making excuses. Anyway, speaking of Hogwarts, at this point I am inking in the famous school, and I ended up tweaking it a lot more than I had originally thought I would. There were just some things that weren't measured correctly the first time around, and I ended up having to move them or rescale them to get them to look the way that I wanted them to. Next, I start working on some other aspects of the environment, such as trees, and these trees I think I could have done better. I wanted to keep it simple, and in the future, though, I think I will look up more tutorials on how to draw trees properly, but for this image, I'm pretty satisfied with how they all turned out. You'll also probably notice as I'm putting down the flat colors, I'm also adding some other details, such as the design that's on Princess Bubblegum's jacket or the lines that are on Ariel's fin. I didn't want to use my black ink brush to go over some of these details because they're really subtle and I didn't want them to stick out too much. However, in my last Draw YouTubers video, I did ask if some of you guys would be interested in a coloring page, and a lot of you said yes. Because of the popularity of this request, I decided I would make this image a coloring page as well. Of course, to do this, I did need to go over some of those details I was just talking about with my ink brush for the sake of clarity. If you're interested in downloading the line art for this image, you can find a link to a JPEG and a transparent PNG in the description box below. And remember, if you do post your finished coloring page to your social media site, tag or message me so I can see your work. Back to the image at hand, I am now working on inking in the Quidditch pitch, and as you can see, I have adjusted that a lot as well. I had decided not to put as much detail as I had originally thought into the Quidditch pitch. I just didn't want to overdo it, and I think it looks nice just having the checkered colors representing Ravenclaw, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and Gryffindor. And I realize at this point I haven't actually talked about one of the most important characters in this image, which is Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is one of Brizzy's most favorite characters, and I knew that from the very beginning I wanted her to be in this picture, and I also wanted her to be next to Brizzy. At first I was going to have them back to back, but I ended up changing my mind and I found a different pose online. You actually saw me bring in a photo reference and kind of erase around it so I could get an idea of where I wanted the characters to stand. I didn't actually end up using that exact pose, but it did help me get to the final result that I have here, so I'm very happy with that. By the way, the image that I used is by Senshi Stock over on DeviantArt, and if you guys are interested in seeing more of her work, you can follow a link that's in the description below. And now I'm working on the flats for Brizzy. Eventually, I start to work on putting the inscription on the diadem, which I think that's what I really got hung up on, guys. I just really wanted that writing to be visible. Wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure is a quote from Harry Potter that Rowena Ravenclaw used, and it's obviously inscribed on the diadem, but in the end, I had to cut out that favorite part of mine because I just really didn't care for the design. Something I had to come to terms with as an artist is that sometimes you have to kill off your favorite parts of an image to better enhance it. This is something that I had to do here, and I am really glad of the changes that I did make. Another thing that I've learned, and is still quite difficult for me, is that you've got to take chances and do things differently than what you normally do. And I did do this with the sunset in the background. I don't usually work with lighting like this, and usually my main light source isn't coming from behind the characters. But I am pleasantly surprised to see that I was able to pull it off in a way that I am satisfied with. I really enjoyed doing all the rim lighting and the just soft transitional shading. I'm actually very pleased with how this image turned out, and thank you to everyone who requested my next Draw YouTuber video be of Brizzy Voices. I hope you liked it, and I really hope that Brizzy liked it as well. If you did, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. To everyone who's new to my videos, thanks for being here, and if you like the content that I'm making, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel. Thanks again for watching, and thank you to everyone who has supported me so far on YouTube. You guys are awesome, and I can't wait to see you later.